You don't remember the moment you forgot it. That's the strangest part. Not the forgetting itself, but the silence where the memory used to live. 'Cause once, long ago, there was something you loved, something that mattered enough to leave a mark. And now, when you try to reach for it, your mind touches nothing but fog. Tonight's story begins at the edge of that fog. There is a river that does not appear on any map. It does not flood towns. It does not reflect the moon. It makes no sound when it moves. And yet, every night it flows, not through land, but through people. They do not dream of it. They do not see it. But when they wake in the morning, something small is missing. A name, a face, a feeling that once made their chest warm. And they never realize where it went. The river only appears at night, in the hour when the world is quiet enough for forgotten things to drift. It runs through a valley no one remembers walking into, past trees that bend as if listening, under a sky that never changes. And if you stand close enough, you can see them, memories, floating, slowly, like leaves that once belonged to someone else. Tonight, you are closer to the river than you think. Because this story is not about a place you visit. It's about something that has already passed through you. There is a small town near the river, or at least that's what the people there believe. They call it Grey Wake, because every morning feels slightly unfinished. No one in Grey Wake remembers their childhood clearly. No one recalls their first love without hesitation. Photographs feel unfamiliar. Voices in recordings sound distant, like echoes from another life. And no one questions it, because forgetting happens slowly. And when something fades a little each day, the mind learns to live without it. Except for one person. His name is Elias Rowan. Or at least, that's the name he wakes up with every morning. Elias lives in a narrow house at the edge of town, where the lights from the street never quite reach. Every night he dreams the same dream. Not images, not stories, just a sound. Water, moving without noise. The dream always ends the same way. Elias is standing on a riverbank, watching something drift away, something important, something he cannot remember, but knows without question that it belongs to him. And every time he wakes, his heart is racing, not from fear, but from loss. Tonight is different, because tonight Elias does not wake up. The air in Grey Wake grows heavier as the clock passes midnight. Houses settle, wind pauses, and somewhere beyond the last streetlight, the river opens its eyes. Elias stands again on the riverbank, but this time the dream does not blur. The ground feels solid. The air smells cold and old, like rain trapped in stone. The river moves before him, dark and impossibly smooth, and floating on its surface are memories. Not glowing, not magical, just real. A child's laugh, folded like paper. A woman's voice, half dissolved. A moment of happiness, drifting face down. Elias steps closer. The river reacts. It slows, as if recognizing him. For the first time in his life, Elias understands something without remembering it. This river has taken something from him. And tonight, it wants to give something back. A figure stands on the opposite bank. Tall, still, wearing a coat that looks older than time. His face is calm. Not cruel, not kind. Just patient. "You're early," the figure says. Elias opens his mouth to speak, but the river rises slightly, as if warning him. The figure continues. "Most people never notice what they lose," it says. "They only notice the ache." Elias feels his chest tighten. "What is this place?" he asks. The figure looks at the water. "This," it says softly, "is where forgotten memories go. When they are no longer needed, the river shifts. Something brushes against Elias's leg. A memory, not his, but close enough to hurt. And as it drifts past, Elias realizes the truth. If memories can be forgotten, they can also be taken. The figure raises its hand. The river responds. And Elias understands, with sudden clarity, that once you step into this water, you do not choose what you remember again. The current begins to pull, and the river does not stop. By the second night, the river no longer waited for me to approach. Came to me. I was halfway asleep when I heard it. Not the sound of water, but the feeling of it. A pressure behind the eyes. Pull in the chest. Like remembering something important and not knowing why your heart suddenly hurts. I stood up without fully waking. The door to my room was open, though I was certain I'd closed it. Moonlight stretched across the floor in a shape that didn't match the window. Curved. It flowed. The river had moved closer. I followed the soundless current through the house, my feet cold against the floorboards. The hallway seemed longer than usual, bending slightly, as if the house itself was leaning toward the water. When I stepped outside, the night air felt thick, charged, almost electric. The river was no longer beyond the trees. It ran directly through the backyard. No banks, no disruption to the grass, just a smooth, dark ribbon of moving reflection, sliding through reality as if it had always been there and the world had simply forgotten to notice. This time, the water glowed faintly from within, and this time the memories were louder. I knelt beside it, unable to stop myself. The surface rippled, and a face appeared. My own, but younger. Not a reflection. A moment. I was 8 years old, standing in a school hallway, holding a drawing I'd made for my mother. I remembered the pride, the careful coloring, the hope. Then the memory shifted. I watched myself hand it to her. I watched her smile. Tired, distracted. I watched her set it down and never look at it again. The river swallowed the scene. I staggered back, breath sharp in my throat. That memory hadn't been gone. I'd never thought about it, never labeled it as pain. But my chest suddenly ached with something old and quiet and heavy. You don't just carry forgotten memories, I whispered to the water. You carry the ones we never realized mattered. The current slowed. For the first time I sensed awareness. Not intelligence. Not emotion. Recognition. The river knew it had been seen. The next day things began to change. People in town walked more slowly, as if moving through invisible water. Conversations trailed off mid-sentence. Old photographs appeared on doorsteps, pictures no one remembered taking. At the cafe, the barista paused while handing me my drink. "Did you ever have a dog?" she asked suddenly. I shook my head. "No." She frowned, confused, like she'd just lost a word mid-thought. "I swear I remember losing one," she said softly. "But I don't remember having one." That night the river was wider. It hummed now, not with sound, but with emotional pressure, like standing near a crowd you can't see. I noticed objects along its edge. Not debris. Offerings. A cracked watch. A child's shoe. A stack of letters tied with string. Memories, given shape. As I stared, a figure emerged on the opposite bank. An old man sat in a wooden chair, hands folded, eyes fixed on the water. "You're late," he said calmly, without looking at me. "I don't know you," I replied. He nodded. "That's the point." He told me the river wasn't new. It had always flowed beneath the town, beneath every town. But most people lived their entire lives never standing close enough to feel it. "Why now?" I asked. "Because it's full," he said. "And when it's full, it returns things." I asked him what happens when memories return. He looked at me then. His eyes were wet but steady. Some people wake up, he said. Some people break. He gestured toward the river. And some people remember something they were never supposed to forget. The current surged. Names whispered through the air. Not spoken, but felt. Regret, love, shame, joy, loss. My name passed through me like a shiver. The river was no longer just carrying memories. It was calling them back. And deep inside, I understood the truth I hadn't yet said out loud. If the river kept flowing, no one in this town would remain the same. Not even me.
The river did not stop flowing when I spoke her name, but something changed. The surface, once smooth and silver, began to ripple in slow, deliberate circles, like the river was breathing. The sound of water deepened, no longer a gentle current but a low, resonant hum, as if thousands of distant voices had begun to whisper at once. Elena tightened her grip on my sleeve. "I feel it," she said quietly. "It knows you." The ferryman was gone. In his place stood only the boat, rocking gently at the river's edge, its lantern burning brighter than before. The flame inside flickered between colors, gold, blue, and something darker, like a memory struggling to surface. I stepped closer to the water. The river responded immediately. Images began to rise again. But this time, they did not float past. They slowed. They lingered. A child's laughter echoed, sharp and sudden. I saw small hands clutching a paper airplane, running across a cracked sidewalk under a summer sky. I felt the warmth of that moment hit my chest before I understood why. It was me, not a memory I remembered, a memory I had lost. My knees weakened. "That's impossible," I whispered. The river shimmered, and another scene emerged. A hospital room, white walls, the steady beep of a monitor. A woman sitting beside a bed, holding a man's hand, tears silently falling onto the blanket. My mother and my father, before the accident. My breath caught painfully in my throat. I had no memory of this moment, none at all, but the river did. "Elena," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't remember saying goodbye." She looked at the water, then at me, her eyes filled with something dangerously close to understanding. "Some memories aren't lost," she said softly. "They're buried because remembering them would break you." The boat creaked. The lantern flared brighter, casting long shadows across the water. In its glow, I saw something beneath the surface, shapes, deeper and darker than before, memories that had sunk too far down. "Why is it showing me this now?" I asked. Elena hesitated. "Because you're close to the center," she said, "and the river doesn't let anyone leave without paying a price." A cold wind swept across the bank. The ferryman's voice returned, not from behind us, but from everywhere at once. Every memory carried here was once abandoned. The water darkened. Some were forgotten by accident. Some were surrendered willingly. And some were taken. My heart began to pound. "What do you mean, taken?" I asked. The river answered instead. The surface split, and a single memory rose higher than the rest. It hovered inches above the water, trembling. I recognized it instantly. A night, rain against a windshield, headlights blinding, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly. A moment of distraction, a sound like thunder tearing metal apart. The accident, but something was wrong. The memory didn't end where it should have. Continued. I saw myself stumbling out of the car, shouting my father's name. I saw blood on my hands, not his, mine. I saw the choice, the one I never remembered making. I turned away from the river, gasping for air. "No," I said. "That's not how it happened." Elena's voice trembled. "The river doesn't lie." The ferryman emerged again, standing at the far end of the boat. "You offered that memory," he said calmly. "You begged the river to take it." My head spun. "I don't remember doing that." Exactly. The truth hit me harder than the images. I hadn't lost that memory. I had traded it. What did I get in return? I whispered. The ferryman's eyes reflected the lantern light. The ability to keep living. Silence swallowed the riverbank. Elena stared at me, realization dawning across her face. "That's why the river brought you here," she said. "It doesn't just carry forgotten memories, keeps records of debts." The boat shifted, drifting slightly away from the shore. The lantern pulsed once, twice. The ferryman raised his oar. "You may leave," he said, "or you may reclaim what you surrendered." My chest burned. "And if I take it back?" I asked. The ferryman's expression did not change. "Then you must give the river something of equal weight." The water surged violently. Images began rising faster now. Countless lives, countless losses, all circling the boat like ghosts. Elena grabbed my arm. "Listen to me," she said urgently. "Some memories are anchors. If you take them back, they will pull you under." I looked at the river, then at the boat, then at the memory of the accident, still hovering, waiting. For the first time since arriving, I understood the true danger of this place. The river wasn't testing my courage. It was testing my willingness to suffer. And the lantern was dimming.
By the time Elias returned to the riverbank, the sky no longer looked like a sky. It was layered, like thin sheets of glass stacked over one another, each one reflecting a different version of light. Not stars, not clouds, something quieter, something remembering. The river had changed too. It no longer flowed in one direction. Memories drifted upstream now, downstream, sideways. Some hovered in place, trembling as if unsure whether they still belonged to anyone. The ferryman stood exactly where Elias had left him, but he looked older, not physically. His face was the same, but heavier, as if time itself had leaned against him for too long. "You stayed," Elias said. The ferryman nodded. "I always do. Someone must remain when others choose to remember." Elias looked at his hands. They were faintly translucent. "What happens now?" he asked. The ferryman reached into his coat and pulled out something Elias hadn't seen before. A small glass vial, glowing faintly from within. "Every traveler reaches this moment," the ferryman said. "The moment where forgetting and remembering can no longer coexist." He held up the vial. "Inside this is the last memory you ever lost." Elias felt his chest tighten. "I don't know what it is. That is why it matters." The ferryman stepped closer to the river. The water reacted instantly. Ripples spread outward, forming images on the surface. A kitchen table at dusk. A chair pulled back, waiting. A voice calling a name Elias hadn't heard in decades. His mother. Not as she was near the end, but as she had been before illness hollowed her voice. Before silence filled the house. Elias staggered back. "I forgot her," he whispered. The ferryman shook his head gently. "No, you survived her absence." The river brightened, carrying fragments of that memory past Elias's feet. Laughter, warm light, the smell of old books and tea. "If I take it back," Elias said, "what happens?" "You will remember why you became who you are," the ferryman replied. "And you will feel the grief you buried to keep moving." Elias looked at the vial. "And if I refuse? Then the river keeps it. And one day, when you need it most, it will not be there." Silence stretched between them. Elias realized something then, something terrifying. The river wasn't cruel. It wasn't stealing memories. It was protecting people from remembering too soon. He reached out. The vial was warm. As soon as his fingers closed around it, the world tilted. The memory returned not as images, but as sensation. The weight of a hand on his shoulder. The safety of being seen without explanation. The quiet confidence that someone would always be there. Elias collapsed to his knees. He didn't scream. He didn't cry loudly. The grief moved through him like the river itself, slow, relentless, cleansing. When he looked up, the ferryman was watching him with something close to relief. "You chose remembering," he said. Elias nodded weakly. "I think I was always meant to." The river surged. Memories began flowing faster now, no longer stagnant, no longer confused. They moved with purpose, like they knew where they belonged. "What happens to me?" Elias asked. The ferryman smiled, truly smiled, for the first time. "You will return. To my life. Yes, but not unchanged." The ferryman gestured toward the water. A path formed, solid enough to walk on, made of light and reflection. "And you?" Elias asked. "I remain," the ferryman said, "until the next one arrives thinking they've lost nothing important." Elias stood. For the first time, his body felt solid again. As he stepped onto the path, he hesitated. "Will I forget this place?" The ferryman considered the question carefully. "No," he said, "but you will remember it differently." The river whispered as Elias walked away. Elias woke up at his desk. Morning light filtered through the window. The city sounded the same. Cars, distant voices, routine life continuing without pause. But something inside him had shifted. He noticed things he usually ignored. The warmth of his coffee, the photograph on his shelf he couldn't remember putting there, his mother smiling. Elias touched it gently. The memory didn't hurt the way it used to. Weeks passed, then months. Elias began writing again, not to escape, but to preserve. Stories filled with quiet details, emotional truths, things people thought they had forgotten but hadn't. One evening, while walking near the river outside the city, Elias stopped. For just a moment, the water shimmered unnaturally. He thought he saw a boat, a figure standing still, watching. Elias nodded once, small, respectful. The river flowed on, carrying forgotten memories, and returning them only when the soul was finally ready to remember.